Well, hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is run by DASA and APMG jointly. And it's about what is DevOps and how to kickstart your DevOps career. My name is Stefan Brendel. I'm from APMG. And with me is Dimitri van den Broek, who's the Managing Director of DASA. Can you please advance the slide for me, Dimitri? One further, please.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Before we start, actually, I want to give us some housekeeping rules here. So as you understand, you are all muted and the session is being recorded. You have the option to submit questions anytime. We will monitor the questions all the time, and we will step in the presentation if a question really needs an answer at that time. Yeah. Also, your feedback is welcome and valuable. You have our email addresses, and so we would always like to know how we can improve webinar. This is quite a big one today. We have a huge audience with us, so I hope you enjoy today. Now, there's one special that I want to highlight, and we have an exclusive offer for you webinar attendees and those who registered, and that's that you get a 25% off training and exam. And the way to do this is you can do this, hopefully not now, because there will still be time afterwards and there are enough seats for that. Visit the DASA website and complete the form there, and then you will receive details in your follow-up email. Just remember, this is only for attendees or registrants of today's webinar, where this discount is valid. Now, before I introduce Dimitri van den Broek to you, I actually want to give him some kind of heads up of where you're actually coming from. What's your role and your business role, so we get a little bit of understanding about the audience. If we can just run the poll for the moment. I think, Estelle, we're done for now. Yeah, Dimitri, you like that? Not really a surprise that people work in IT, what, 36%? None of the above is interesting, 6%.
Yeah. Quite a few managers.
Have quite a few managers on board today, which is good, right?
Yes. Excellent.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, the next one, please. Yeah. Well, now we come to our presenter today, which is Dimitri van den Broek. He's the Managing Director of the DASA, DevOps Agile Skills Association. He's also a founding member of Entrepreneurs. Dimitri and I know each other for many, many, many years, and Dimitri is one of those who are really, really visible and active in the industry. And no more words, just over to you, Dimitri.
Thank you, Stefan, and thanks to APMG for hosting this webinar. And it's an exciting one for me, an interesting one. And I'll explain you why. Before I do so, thanks to the audience today, I see still a number of folks logging in is increasing. And I had a quick brief at, the geographical spread, and it's amazing to see folks from basically all different regions, countries, and territories. So welcome with us, and it will be an exciting one. Why it's exciting for me is that because today's webinar, we're going to look at what is DevOps, and to be honest, I'm not that much anymore talking about what is DevOps, but today we're going to give you a grasp of what it is. We're going to look at career options. We're going to look at some of the key roles in the DevOps world and how to get there. I'm going to talk about how DASA is helping professionals like you and organizations on their DevOps journeys. going to look at the DASA DevOps competence model and the quick scan, and basically give you an idea how you can kickstart your career. I also see a little bit more some familiar faces. For them, it's more straightforward, but it's interesting that my assumption is that we are going to explain quite a lot about the basics as well. So important for all of us is Stefan and I prepared a very interesting storyline. Please share your questions, share your ideas, and help us also with the polls that we're going to launch after this initial introduction. And let's make it as interactive as possible, because we will be using your input to go into specific areas that we are prepared. So before we go to the next poll, let me quickly look at the agenda for today, and so some of those things are already discussed. So we are going to talk about DASA, DevOps Agile Skills Association. What is it? Who are we? What is our purpose? We're going to talk about DevOps. Perhaps for those 12% who are not working in IT, maybe for those folks, it's very interesting to learn about what it is. And we have some interesting things as well. Our competence model and the quick scan. Some of you have also come prepared and did this, let's say, 6-minute, 24-question quick scan. Those who come prepared, we'll do an exercise with all of you how to analyze and interpret your data. We're going to look at some of the roles, common learning tracks, and also help you get to the next level. So Estelle, would you be willing to give me the poll? How familiar is the audience with DASA? And after that, I will take back. Thank you. So did you attend a presentation or a DASA meetup? Are you not familiar with DASA? A little bit familiar? Or perhaps you heard about DASA from some of your friends or networks or colleagues. We have 70% voted. So you can close the poll, Estelle, please. I think we are at 85, fantastic. So most of you, well, are you quite familiar? That's good to see, 39%, but about a similar amount, 34% is not familiar. So you don't have a clue what DASA does. So that's an interesting audience. Let's see, to satisfy both of you, and a bit familiar. So that's perfectly fine. Can you run the next poll on what is most important to you today? Because when we know what you would like to take away from this session, then we can also drive it into the best possible direction. So would you like to know more about how to accelerate your career? Or would you like to understand what DevOps is? Did you hear about DASA's competence model and you'd like to learn more about it? Or in general, would you like to learn more about DASA? And the way we set up this webinar, I mean, all of those questions can be right or can be answered. So we just like to understand, what is your preference? So let's close it indeed. So that's an interesting one. So actually, it seems like there's a multiple answers possible. I mean, that would be my interpretation of this poll result. Please, Stefan, correct me if I'm wrong.
You want to, I mean, why not? Information how to accelerate my career and learn more about DASA. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, fantastic. And understanding DevOps as well. Okay, so let me try to get back to our screen over here. Here we go. Excellent, we're back. So let's get started. And thanks for your input. So let's start with a little bit of DASA and how it started. So in 2016, we noticed that organizations in the industry were actually struggling and battling with the question like they saw DevOps coming up, but also with the question, you know, what does it mean for my teams? What does it mean for my organization? How should we deal with it? And what are the ways to develop the right competences? And in 2016, we established DASA. It's an international community of experts, of members, of training organizations, exam institutes, and trainers, ambassadors, influencers, and we're basically focused around three important ways to develop competence. One of them is being the certification scheme. The other one are the principles, and the third major component that is visible are also the DASA competence model and the quick scan. So if you look at us, we get together regularly, we do webinars like this. Knowledge sharing is in our DNA, and we invite everyone as well to join us, to come up with ideas, and also to help us basically push the boundaries and move forward. So the question which we're going to answer today as well, which is an important one, is the question about what is DevOps. And let me start. Maybe it's a good one to involve Stefan as well. So Stefan, I mean, if you think about DevOps or a definition for DevOps, I mean, could you give us a little bit of a flavor? I mean, it's not on this slide, but it's, can you give me your idea as well?
Yeah, you see, when the first time I heard about DevOps, this really was coming from the software development community. Mm-hmm. And that was about doing things fast with a lot of technology, a lot of automation, all that. As I am having an IT service management background, you look at it from a slightly different perspective. It's more on the ops side than on the dev side. But what I learned is, I mean, if you look at just this old-fashioned, very bureaucratic implementation of changes, as you have it in ITIL, for example, this is where DevOps really clashes into. But it requires not just a different approach, it also requires a different behavior. And that's why when I got more into DevOps and I found the DASA competence model, which is really something you can implement step by step and make a difference. That's what DevOps stands for me. Excellent.
Thanks for your inputs. And the person on the screen is actually a guy from Belgium. His name is Patrick Dubois, and actually in 2009, more or less by accident, he invented and coined the term DevOps. He was working in the operations domain, in the infra domain. He attended a conference, an agile conference. I think it was in, I have some notes here. I think it was in Canada or in the US. He attended a session on agile and operations and infra. Nobody visited that. He went out, and then he spoke with the presenter. And next year he came back in a velocity conference, and they asked him, hey, why don't you run your own session? And by doing so, he invented, well, he combined the word dev and ops, called it DevOps Days, and that was in 2009 when this actually got started. And if you read about Patrick Dubois, it's a very interesting one, because he was never expecting this term to be so commonly used around the world. So it's relatively new, but where does it come from? And for those of you who are familiar with software development methodologies, I mean, you'll immediately see it. But if you see the traditional way of, let's say, software development, from waterfall specification, you're going to develop it, you're going to test it, you're going to run it, you're going to give it to operations, you see a lot of different entities, functions involved from one step to the other. And what we all know is that that way of software development is not actually working. So Agile brought a better and more efficient way of working. However, the complexity with Agile is that, you know, typically, and this is generic remarks. So typically agility stops at the door of production. So you develop your software fast, but if you hand over, then it can break down, or it can lose its efficiency. So when DevOps came around, it's actually an integrated way of working, where you also look at operations, where you look at the development side, and you basically integrate the whole product, and you think about high-performing teams. So, and what you typically hear and read about, and this is for the folks who like to learn more about DevOps, is that you basically see two teams, and this is a very simplistic representation. You see the development teams who go for change, they need new functionality, new features, etc. And you see the operation teams who go for stability. And these things, they can typically clash. So what DevOps does and intends to do is bring them together, find an optimal balance, and by doing so also talk the same language and be faster. It's a simplistic model, and during the presentation we will also explain that there are much more views on this besides operations and dev. There's a customer side, there's much more there, which is important, but this is the very simplistic operation to understand where DevOps is coming from. So, Stefan, thanks again for your definition. We also had this definition, and but what we ultimately decided it doesn't make a lot of sense to talk about definitions, what it is, because many of us will have different opinions. So what we did when we started with DASA is we designed and we developed very specific principles. And those principles, well, basically they are a way of working. You know, they describe how you would like to run it, what you basically expect DevOps to be, or how you would like to, if your organization to run or to be, and how you would like to behave. So, and those principles, they are key in everything DASA does and everything our customers do. We see them back in global transformation plans, where they get embedded as best of breed principles. And because they are important, and because you would like to learn about DevOps, I'm also going to explain them, you know, what they entail. So the first one is customer-centric action. So everything you do, everything you develop, everything you design, every activity you do, in the end, it has to serve a customer. So all your teams, all your individuals actually need to know, you know, what does this mean for my customer, and what does my customer need? And because if you don't have a very clear idea what your customer needs or wants, etc., then in any case it will be very difficult to please him, or for your organization to stay in business for a long time, because there will be other companies coming out there with digital models and digital services who will just understand the customer better, and you'll be out of business. The second thing is create with the end of mind. It's being a kind of product company and having a product and a services mindset. So no waterfall philosophies, but having an integrated DevOps approach. The third one is, and that's also team related, is having teams with end-to-end responsibility. So in an ideal world, you have a team who owns a specific feature, service, or product from concept to grave, from the beginning to the end. And it's not only just developing that once, no, it's maintaining that, improving that, and from end to end, from the start of that service or product, basically till the end. And having focus within a team will really have a lot of responsibilities and accountabilities. And research has proven that that works very well. The fourth one is a specific element of cross-functional autonomous teams, which we will also be discussing and advising you when you take the next step in your DevOps career is that having T-shaped profiles in teams works very well. So we're going to look at how to get there, how to train yourself, what kind of skills and competencies do you need. Number 5 is the dominant concept from the lean movement. Continuous improvement, doing things better, always improving, having a learning attitude. And number 6 is about automate everything you can. Also fueled by possibilities within IT and technology. It's been important that everything automate as much as you can and just do the creative stuff. Do it with the teams and the people, and what you can automate it left or right. So why DevOps, Stefan? So there we go. So why? Can you give me your assessment? What will be your first word, or what would you think first about when you think about why DevOps? What's going on? What's actually happening?
What's happening when? Well, why do I need DevOps now? I had quite a few projects in the past where now, even when there were only small changes from my perspective, it took an awful lot of time to get these changes implemented. There were probably like 50 people involved, and everybody made a click on the different, clicked some settings on the different part of the systems to make this all done. It took ages to get changes done. Yeah. Now I have to admit, this was some time ago, like probably 6, 7, 8, 9 years. But I know that still some people are working like that. Or, as you said, there's this wall of conflict between stability, and I would add to that compliance, for example, security, or that, versus fast time to market. And you can't just make compromises. It has to be more than that. And that's what I think what DevOps stands for.
Excellent. Thank you, Stefan. So just from a matter of time, so if you look at a very high level, I mean, and this is actually a slide from 2018, and just like to bring it here to give a perspective for those who are not that familiar with DevOps and the automation part of DevOps, is that what Stefan also mentioned is doing things faster, doing things better. That's one of the most important outputs from DevOps. What you'll also find is not only the 46 times faster code deployments and fewer incidents and faster recoveries. You also find that the organizations who are doing well with this and working with those teams, they also have higher customer satisfaction, higher listing on the stock exchange. I mean, price earning ratios, and also there are teams, or let's say a net promoter score for employees. They are more likely to recommend their organization to start working for, and that's a very important factor. So if you look at it, I mean, what's happening, I think that's probably one of the key reasons organizations are looking at it. It goes faster, and etc. There's another factor as well for traditional industries, or I mean, because a lot of the innovators also in front of this slide, I mean, they're also going to mainstream industries, and what you see, if you don't change, if you don't come up with new business model, if you don't do it fast, if you don't innovate, there's a very serious risk that you will not make it to the next phase in your company's life. So there's also a very specific threat, you know, I mean, you have to go as well. And it means for, let's say, traditional organizations, not only breaking down the walls between IT departments and functions, but also breaking down the walls between IT and the business. So you need to start working in a completely different way. And yes, so of course we live in times of the pandemic. I would typically show you pictures, of where we are all having our meetups and getting together. If you look at the number of conferences that are being promoted and held on DevOps around the world. But there are also other ways to look at it, and this is a thing I did yesterday, just trending against other terms, and you really see DevOps trending. And in my opinion, and our opinion, is that it's actually just started. So DevOps is here to stay. It's not a specific trend. It's a very important. It's not a fad, I have to say. It is a trend, and it will continue. So for you, all of us, to understand what is really driving it, is basically, that's also as consumers. There's no way, we want to go back without our mobile and the banking apps and the navigations or the watching movies on the spot. So and that's also driving a lot of the DevOps awareness that also we see happening from the DevOps Agile Skills Association. Be aware that, so while we talk about the promise of DevOps, so that's all fine, it's great, but at the same time, many organizations find it difficult to do it. And that's where we come in, but that's also where you come in as an expert, a consultant, an employee, a team member. And we will look in this presentation as well, why that is and what is basically happening. So some items revealed, it has a lot to do with culture. There are different DNAs. You have to have people work together. You have to have trust. You have to talk the same language. You have to understand from each other what you're actually doing. And that's also where our tools come in. Tools like the competence model, tools like the DASA DevOps QuickScan. So let me have a look over here. So yeah, we also have a question for those of you who took the QuickScan, and let me wait for a little bit, 5 minutes, and then ask you how many of you actually came prepared. If you haven't come prepared, it's not an issue at all, but it will be interesting to understand how many of you. But let's first look at the DASA DevOps competence model and give you the background about what this is, why we developed this, and what's the purpose for you. Why is this valuable for you? So to understand this, in 2016, when DASA got established, the first body of knowledge which was developed and shared with the market, because this is basically in the public domain from DASA to the industry, is that we build a model which is able to assess the readiness on the team level, and that we're talking about a DevOps readiness. So we look at 4 skills areas. Those are the blue boxes. You talk about courage, team building, leadership, and continuous improvement. And for courage, we look at coaching, confidence, being proactive. I'll just name a few: experimentation, fail fast, team building, understanding the other's point of view, mutual trust, common purpose, but also on leadership and continuous improvement. So those are more the softer skills. We also define the knowledge areas that you need in your team to be successful or to be able to run autonomously, where you need to have sufficient expertise on board. And then you talk about the business side, business value optimization, how the application functions in real life, business analysis, architecture and design, about programming, continuous delivery, writing test scripts, a test specification, infrastructure engineering, let's say more the operations or typical ops side, but also security, risk, and compliance. And the beauty is that in this model, as an individual, you have a specific profile, and we're going to talk about those profiles. So you can do a quick test, and you will get a specific score on those 12 domains. So you can be competent, level 2, you can be proficient, expert, and master. And that's what we're going to talk about. So behind the scenes, I mean, this is the high-level assessment of what is covered in those 12 domains. But behind the scenes, we also designed a model that what does it mean to be level 4 on courage? What does it mean to be level 5 on infrastructure engineering? So we also wrote down the whole logic and flow of the model. I mean, what it means to be in level 1 to 5. And that representation is covered and translated into the so-called competence quick scan. Because that competence quick scan, which you'll find on the logo in front of you, scan.devopsagileskills.org, that quick scan takes you in 24 questions and gives you your own personal DevOps fingerprint. That's your profile on the 12 domains. And how does it look like? It looks like this. So you'll get a score on each of the individual domains, and with that score, you can take your next steps. So for your information, guys, and also I see some questions popping up, and I know that I'm not unable to read them myself. So I know that Stefan is also filtering them and will bring them up. So, but please share questions and ideas, and Stefan will also bring them into the conversation. So very interested to understand how we.
So there's one question, and this is probably pretty much precise, about how would you differentiate between the following: continuous integration, continuous development, continuous deployment, continuous delivery, and continuous testing? And what's the delta between all of the above in DevOps? Now, to be fair, I think that needs more writing down to that. The author of the question has not given any background why he's asking that.
Yeah, but it's a very Stefan, if I can just reflect on it, because we'll obviously I think this comes from Sandeep. Sandeep is not a person who's in the first bracket, like I like to learn more about DevOps. I think he has a very solid understanding. For him, it's probably more interesting to learn about DASA. But this continuous everything, which he is talking about, you have to have an understanding, even if it's conceptually, what it means and what it is. Because if you understand the continuous integration, continuous deployment, then you understand how DevOps, if you do it well, can really accelerate your projects and can help you do things faster as well. So from our perspective from DASA, I will also explain the audience today how we actually train you, get those concepts on board, and how you can leverage those concepts. In our assessment, in our philosophy, and we trained 10,000s of learners and certified them all over the world, is any person in a DevOps team needs to have at least a high-level understanding of what Sandeep is currently asking in this brilliant question, you know? And probably not about the deltas between left and right, but understanding what it is, what it does, and why it's important. It's a critical thing in what we believe building T-shaped profiles. Stefan, thanks for your question, and Sandeep, I see you. I think thanks also for this.
There are more questions coming in, and I will let you know.
Absolutely, please interrupt me on the spot. So, the purpose. What's the purpose of this competence model? Why did we do it? We didn't do it just for fun. No, we did develop this because we felt that the guidance was needed and required for teams to understand, you know, are we on the right track? Are we on the right track to live our principles, to be autonomous, to have the right competences, you know, in our team? So what we do is, so you have your individual profile, you can roll it up on a team level, and I'll show you how it works. But teams need to be at minimum level 4 on all those 12 domains. That's a very important guidance, and I'll show you how it works. As an individual in a DevOps team, you can be an expert in testing, an expert in coding, an expert in security, risk, and compliance. But we also feel and strongly recommend that you need to be minimum level 2 in all the domains, in the red domains, the functional domains, and level 3 on the more softer domains. It's critical that you all talk the same language, that you also all know what kind of leadership style is required, how you talk, how you do, how you behave, because the cultural thing and the way you work together is absolutely of critical importance. So why do we have it? Right guidance. Go ahead, Stefan. Thanks.
There's a question from Marcel, which I think fits in here, because she's asking, or her or him is asking, he's asking, is DevOps for non-IT? And I would also get the next one. How can a project manager integrate DevOps in his career?
Yes.
Absolutely. So when you basically outside of IT, as a project manager who builds bridges or buildings, for example.
Absolutely. Yes, I think the way of working, if you look at DevOps as a project tool as well, I mean, looking at what the customer wants, using sprints with minimal viable product to get your projects delivered. I think DevOps is, or let's say the agile part of DevOps, agile delivery, agile project management is very, it's commonly used outside IT as well. I think instead of specifying completely where you need to be, you test, you run, and iteratively you get to your endpoint. So Marcella, I think it's a great question. And I see many project managers, and I think also moving or adopting DevOps ways of working, of DevOps philosophies, DevOps principles in running and managing their projects as well. So I think in general there's a huge tendency towards agile project management, and that's, yeah, I mean, we see a lot of that happening around the world. It's a very big thing in market, and DevOps, you should see DevOps on top of agile. It's not something separate. It's also the principles that we have are completely built on top of agile. So that's also an important thing to realize, and I'm happy that this question popped in as well. Yes.
More to come.
Excellent. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. Thanks for interrupting, Stefan. So this is how it looks like on a team level. So you have the individuals, all of them took their individual scans, you roll them up. And once you roll them up, you also see the gaps, you know, and those are the gaps. If you do not reach level 4, you have something to discuss. So you can say switch team members, go to a course, you know, join a conference, talk to people, you know, in your network, but someone has to fill the gap. And modern teams, they are responsible. The team themselves is completely responsible to talk to each other, say, guys, we have a gap here. What do we do? Who is the best person to take this on and get ourselves to the next level? So that's also a very interesting component of those DevOps teams. If you look at DASA and the competence model, there's a one-on-one mapping, and that's a very important thing to know, because we will advise you as well what are your best steps based on your profile to take towards a DevOps career. And we'll use the competence model. So it's important also to understand how the certifications are mapped to that. So let me start with the 3 levels. So we have a fundamentals certification, a professional level certification, and on top you see the leadership certification. So the fundamental certification, if you look at the competence model, the fundamental certification brings you to level 2 on all the 12 domains. So If we talk about a T-shaped profile, it means you have a specialty, but you also understand all the 12, in this case, are 12 domains up to level 2. So you are competent. You get the question from Sandeep, if you talk about, well, continuous integration. And so at least you have an understanding what those guys are talking about. If you come from a testing world or you come from a completely different world. Same if you're a tester, you understand exactly, what does it mean? What are the basic in security, risk, and compliance that I need to know? And so that's what we talk about T-shaped. So then you have the next level, professional level, and I will explain those profiles in detail as well, because looking at your own assessments, I'm very interested to see what we see happening. So, but the enable and scale brings you to level 3 on courage, team building, leadership, and improvement. Those are the teams who like to build teams, scale teams, and focus more on the softer team side, so to say. And then you have the 2 others. You have to specify and verify. They specify what the customer wants. They know what the customer wants. They are able to write test scripts and get the product out there that the customer requires. So there you will need to have an understanding about architecture and design, business value optimization, business analysis, and test specification. So in that profile, will bring you to level 3 on those things. And at the heart, the true heart of the DevOps teams, there is also the create and deliver, which brings you to level 3 on the infrastructure engineering, security, risk, compliance, continuous delivery, and programming. So those are the 3 profiles, and you'll find in the outer circle, which I will also discuss, because that could also be an outlook for those of you who are interested in becoming a product owner, DASA DevOps product owner, a leader, or moving into a coach. And it's all built on the competence model, but basically circles around it. There's no hard link. If you would like to become a DASA DevOps coach, if you already have some experience, life experience, work experience in your pocket, you can directly go to the DASA DevOps coach. We'll make sure that you learn about the basics, the competence model, the principles. You can directly enter those programs with appropriate pre-reading. The professional level courses, they do require you to have understanding of, ideally, of course, pass the DASA DevOps fundamentals, because it builds on those 12 domains and brings you to the next level. But I'll discuss more about that later as well. So how does it work in practice? Very simple, 4 minutes, and then we're going to look at your assessments as well and get your input. So this is Bob. Bob was assigned to a team. Bob was is working for a bank, going to do DevOps, and they asked him as well in the beginning, Bob, what kind of profile are you? And think about profile. Please think about this. Sorry. Let me. Sorry, guys. So there's some delay here. Think about this. Are you more a person interacting with customers? Are you more a programmer? Are you more a person who like to enable the teams and work with the teams? And he told that his boss, his management, his teams, his project team, listen, I'm really into working closely with our customers and making things happen. So that's basically the specify and verify profile, and that's typically how it works. So this organization, all of them, all the new DevOps teams to be formed, took the quick scan, also started doing the trainings. So he knew about his DevOps profile. He was already quite good in test specification, level 3, and over the years, basically, he took the fundamentals, which brings him to level 2 on all the 11 domains. He was already a level 3 on test specification. And over the years, he added to his so-called competence stack based on what his employer asked, based on what his teams required, and basically adding to his, let's say, competence stack. So at the end, I mean, his competence scan would look like this, and he would be a very valuable member to that DevOps team. So let me, Estelle, if you are around, it would be a good moment to ask the folks if they completed the assignment. Yes, that's an interesting one. Yes, let's 8% yes. 27 plans to do it shortly. Fantastic. Well, that's still 8%. That's very cool. So let me take it back. Do I have my show again? Let me pause. So here we go. Yes, it's coming. That's better. Learning on the fly. So for those of you who took it, and for those of you who are about to take it, I would recommend you do it. It's 24 questions. It's a snapshot, but it gives you a very interesting insight, and actually also what you don't know. So, and one of the key themes today is, well, do you know what you don't know? Because that's very important. So on those 12 domains, we ask you 2 questions. So, and like Bob, who was specify and verify type of person, he was very strong in those 4 domains. You also probably have your own expertise. It's interesting to assess, in some of the items where you would score a 1 or 2 or on the lower end, to think, well, let me also see if I can work the basics, and get myself into a fundamentals program or a professional level program to hone my skills, or even move it up to a leadership program. So I cannot ask you individually, to show your sheets with me or your assessment, but it's interesting to understand. What's also interesting for you moving forward, and we enter the last 10 minutes, so 5 minutes presentation, and we have some Q&A, so we are perfectly on track. So what kind of profiles are out there? So in the team, so we have functions of folks, with specify, verify, enable a skill, create and deliver, and we have a product owner. And the product owner, he or she is responsible for determining what's going to be done, built, and the activities is going to be listed purely from a customer perspective. And in the DevOps world, it's not only about what's being developed, but also on the servicing side, it's about response times or specific items which came back through the service end of the scale. To give you advice, what organizations are looking for is many of them are looking for T-shaped professionals. So anyone being able to show a DASA fundamental certificate, that's a huge advantage. Why is it? Because organizations are also moving from individual competence development over time more to team-based competence development. And instead of being let's give an example here, a tester, you become a better tester, the best tester, and the ultimate tester. You see in this new world that from different backgrounds, you can actually have very interesting careers and grow it into specific paths that your organization and or your team requires. And it requires a different way of management. So the more broader you are developed, the easier it will be to land yourself new jobs.
I have a question, Dimitri.
Fantastic.
And this is from Matt Thomas.
Yes.
He has raised a question before, which was a bit long, so I asked him to rephrase that. It says, how do we move away from different product teams executing in varied ways of working? How to utilize DevOps to promote a universal way of working, making effort and moving away from siloed product teams?
Yeah.
I think that fits in here.
Yeah. Yes, it absolutely does. It fits immediately in. So I don't know how, but I can tell you what we do from DASA perspective. So we, in our principles, we completely move away from siloed way of working. So we work and we think of integrated teams, but we also lay the foundation by training everyone and making everyone aware how to do it differently. So we start, it's not only taking top management along, but every member in those teams, also non-IT teams who are involved in customer specifications and in the teams, they have to be aware of what we are doing.
Hardly anything left which is not IT related.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
By the way, there was another question which I just want to jump in with from Sandeep, which is about the if the foundation level certifications, also the DevOps fundamentals, if that's mandatory for the next levels, and I would like to add, if so, why?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I briefly explained it. So the slide in front of us is our top level. It might be surprising, but you don't need fundamental certification for the top level. If you're already experienced in that role, and then you can do it. We give you the pre-reading, so you will be prepared because you need to have a basic understanding. But on the professional level, that's where you need a fundamental certification to get into those programs, which is relatively easy to obtain. There are hundreds of training partners out there providing top quality offerings. So Stefan, I would like to give some inputs on this slide, and then we move towards the end, okay? And we'll please have a look at the incoming questions, because because we have consultants here as well. We have DevOps experts around as well, and what we are focusing on is our leadership program. So we have the DevOps product owner, the DevOps coach, which is out, and basically we were the first in the world introducing a solid DASA DevOps coach program, and we're also going to quickly announce the leader, which will be here by the end of this year. But those programs can be very interesting for this audience as well. I shared this last week in a webinar for a US coach program, and they say, yeah, give me a couple of examples. And this, I mean, those roles, well, for some of you, you're not already ready to get there, but you can already get trained to get there. And those roles are very high in demand, pay an extremely good salary. And in essence, it's extremely interesting to be coaching teams and individuals on DevOps adoption and practices. So even if you have some familiarity with this, or come from the agile domain, or are familiar in coaching teams, etc., then you could really consider joining one of the coach programs. And the promotion we have today as well will allow you for a 25% discounts with selected training partners. Why are these leadership programs in demand? Because many digital transformations fail. And many of them, if you look at the successful ones here, the 60%, they have only one thing in common. How they care about how people think, how they interact, how they work, and that's exactly where you, as a DevOps leader or DevOps coach, can make the difference. So, and that's also why customers are basically asking about it. We will share the slides, and you also find some specific career tracks. Before the one final slide is, so we have training partners around the world offering the DASA courses and the APMG exams. We also have a very interesting set of virtual classrooms, and also some of them also powered by experts in the industry. You know, like this masterclass that we recently ran with ex-CIO of ING, CEO from a European airliner, who also provided as a guest lecture on top of DASA DevOps Fundamentals. So if you're interested, let us know. Let's move to the final questions. And before we do, let me explain how you could claim your 25% discount. First of all, reach out to me on LinkedIn, make reference to this this webinar. If you have any additional question, you can also ask or reach out to DASA, link with DASA, and our team members will follow up, or use the link that was also already provided by Stefan. Fill in the form, and we are going to put you in touch with your training partner, which is around the corner in your region, and offering courses. So we still have 2 minutes left, my friend Stefan. So
you're great. You are pretty much precise on that. And I have a couple of questions left here. One was about, I mean, we had this before, like was DevOps, can DevOps be a role outside of IT? Yeah. Now, if there is still something that which has nothing to do with IT, I think a lot of things, IT is business in the meantime, can't run without it. But the question here is from Bazab Nandi, if yes, how is DevOps relevant to non-IT? I think this would go towards the reply of probably behavior, culture, team approach, those kind of things, right?
So let me take an extreme example. So I think DevOps in general is relevant to non-IT, because if you don't, and I'm using my smartphone again, Stefan, but also for you, Bazab Nandi, it's a great question. So if my bank, I'm banking with a Dutch bank, but if there's another bank who would provide me a better functioning app and interface, I can tell you I will probably change in an hour or in a day. You know, I mean, if they make it easy for me, I will change on the fly. And that, in essence, you know, if you work for a bank, if you're a manager, if you're outside IT, the awareness of the importance of digital engagement with your customers, that automatically, and do it fast, and do it what the customer wants, and be on top of things, it's impacting everyone. So that's why also folks or organizations who do DevOps well have very high returns, higher customer satisfaction, etc. So it goes hand in hand. It is absolutely much more than relevant to non-IT. It's of crucial importance. I think it's even a matter of survival today. So
I have one short question with the short answer left for you, because we have on the hour. And that is a question from Brian. What is the average time it takes to progress through the DASA levels? Just an average.
Yes. Yeah, so the fundamentals program, you can do it in an e-learning or to a two-day classroom. Some of them even do a kind of a blended form or a virtual instructor-led form. So that will take you let's say 16 hours. 16 hours. After that, you can immediately join one of the professional level programs. All of them are also available in a virtual instructor-led these days. So join one of the classes around the world. But even if you would like to become a coach or a product owner, you can sign up for programs next week. So there are programs running around the world, and if you're interested, we will point you to those programs. And if you have the right, let's say, preparation or experience where you feel ready to join those programs, then you can actually join one within a matter of weeks. Yeah. So there is not a that's a good one, Stefan, from Brian. There is not a way that you have to spend years or months through our competence model where you can immediately start developing yourself in one of those programs that are out there.
There are, thanks Dimitri, there are more questions that have come in, but we ran out of time. So my suggestion is that as we will share the slide deck as a PDF with all people who have been on the webinar today and who registered, we will also share a Q&A so that we give all these remaining questions, there are a few, so that nobody gets his question or keeps his questions unreplied to. Yes. So we do that. I think everybody should make sure that you claim your 25% discount on your next DASA certification. Instructions will have been mentioned before, but will also be shared in the slide deck. And my sincere thanks to you, Dimitri, for your time, for your competence, for giving us all that insight on DevOps careers today. And to all of you out there, enjoy the rest of your day, depending on what time you have, and wish you a pleasant week then. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Stefan, and thanks to all of you. It was a pleasure, and let's stay in touch. Reach out to me. Thanks.
Bye-bye.